Hello, this is Sara with Posh Pooch Designs, and I got a special request the other day to make a video of my crochet pattern that is a collar for a dog, or it can be a wristband for you, of an awareness ribbon. Now the original pattern I wrote was for the orange is stop animal cruelty and the purple is to stop animal abuse. And I thought it would be a great idea to show you how to make the ribbon and the band, but also to incorporate some of the other colors like breast cancer awareness or thyroid cancer awareness. And of course, the other ribbons have lots of other meanings. And so I decided to go ahead and incorporate all of them so that all the different awareness ribbons could use this pattern. Now this is a free crochet pattern on my blog, and you can find that blog link down in the notes underneath the video. And the blog also has another version where you can add a second color to your ribbon if you want to. So what you're going to need to make a awareness dog collar or band for you is some worsted weight number 4 yarns. Now cottons work also. I just really prefer the worsted weight number 4 yarns for this project. You can use any of the Red Heart Super Saver or I Love This yarn from Hobby Lobby, or any worsted weight number 4 yarns will work just fine. Just find the colors that you're looking for your awareness ribbon. You're going to need a pair of scissors for cutting your yarn. You're going to need a needle for weaving in those ends and sewing on that awareness ribbon. And we're going to be stitching today with our H hook, which is a 5mm. The other thing you're going to need is a tape measure, because the way the pattern works is 3 rows for the band equal 1 inch. And so you'll need to measure either your wrist or your dog's neck in order to know how many rows to make the collar itself. Alright, we're using this lavender, and we're going to start with our slip knot, and we're going to begin with the ribbon. There's our slip knot, and we're going to chain 24 chains. Here's my chain. I've chained 24 chains. And we're going to begin stitching single crochets in the second chain from the hook. Here's our first chain, and we're going to begin in the second chain from the hook. We're going to put our hook through, pull a loop through, yarn over, and go through both of those loops that are on your hook. And we're going to stitch 9 more for a total of 10. There's 2, so we stitched 1 single crochet in the second chain from the hook, and then 1 more in the next 9, so we have 10 single crochets. In the next chain, we're going to stitch 2 single crochets. And we're going to do this in the next 2 chains. So the next chain will have 2 single crochets. And then the next chain will have 2 single crochets. And that's going to give us our little curl so that it goes around for the top of our ribbon. And then we'll have 10 single crochets to stitch at the end, 1 in each of the last 10 chains. Oops. Okay, there's our last single crochet. You can see it's going to lay nicely for a ribbon. Now we're going to cut our yarn. But we want to make sure we give ourselves about 10 to 12 inches because we're going to be using this long piece to make sure that we tack this down so it stays put. Alright, so let's go ahead and tie this off. And we're going to grab our needle. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to weave in the short string. So we're going to thread that on our needle. We're going to turn it over to the back. And we're just going to weave that in, going up a few stitches. And going back down a few stitches. And we'll cut that off. And I always give it just a little bit of a stretch there, make sure that's going to stay put. Alright, so let's get that string out of the way. And now we're going to do the other one. So let's thread the long one onto our needle. We're going to take our ribbon and cross it like this so we know where we want it. And if you want to place a needle or another pin in that spot, let me get that yarn off of there, you can just take it like this and pin it to hold it. And that's what I usually do. I just take another needle I have on hand and just pin it so that it stays put. We're going to turn it over. We're going to weave up the back, going through a few stitches. And then we're going to go right through to the front. And go ahead and take that needle out. And we're going to just make a couple of stitches going back and forth just to tack that in place so it doesn't come undone. Alrighty. So there I've tacked it in place. We're going to turn it back over and just weave in a few more stitches. And then just go right back up in the back and go one way and then turn and go back. There we go. Didn't want to go the other way. I always give it a little bit of a stretch and clip that stitch. And that's how you make the simple ribbon for our collar or for our band. So now we want to make the band, and you need to take your tape measure and measure your dog's neck. And Rosie's neck is 9 inches, so we're going to need to do 27 rows because 3 times 9 is 27. And you can also measure your arm, see how much you want it, and then put 3 rows per inch for however long you want it. I do suggest that you add 1 inch or 3 rows just so that it's comfortable to put on their neck or on your wrist. Alright, so the way we do the band is we're going to do our slip knot, and we're going to chain 6. There's our 6. Whoa, yarn barf. Alright, we're going to begin stitching single crochets in the second chain from the hook. There's our first chain, and we're going to go in the second chain like we did at the beginning of the other one. So we're going to stitch 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 single crochets. We're going to chain 1, and then we're going to turn. So let's look at the top of our stitches. You'll see on this row that there are loops. There's a front loop and a back loop. The back loop is always the loop that is facing away from you. The front loop is always the loop that is facing you. And for this band, we're going to be stitching our rows in the back loops. So you're going to stick your hook through just that back loop, pull up a stitch, and stitch your single crochet. And by doing the stitching in the back loops, we're going to get a nice stretchy wristband or dog collar. We'll chain one and we'll turn, and then we'll continue to stitch one single crochet in each single crochet across, only stitching in the back loops. Chain one and turn, and on this band the chain one does not count as a stitch. It's just a turning chain so that your work lays nicely when it turns. Alright, so let's do this again. We're going to place one single crochet in each of the single crochets, stitching only in that back loop. Now Rosie's neck is 9 inches, and so I'm going to do 27 rows, and then I'm going to add 3 more rows just for comfort so that it slides on and off her neck nicely. And you can do that also with your wrist. If your wrist measures 5 inches, add an additional 3 rows, just to make it a little more comfortable. If you prefer it tight, that's fine too. But the rule of this pattern is 3 chains equal 1 inch. So I've stitched my dog collar, and you can see it's nice and stretchy. And this particular collar, we're going to be closing it shut, and then all you need to do is just slip it right on their neck, right over their existing collar. So I've done my last row. I'm going to put my 2 ends together. I'm going to put my hook through that first stitch on this side and the first stitch on this side, and then I'm going to put that loop, there we go, and pull that through, and then make a chain 1. Alright, and now what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch the end of the collar closed, going through both sides. So I'm going to go through this side and through this side, pull up a loop, and pull that loop through the loop on my hook. There's 2, 3, 4, oops, let me get through that last one there. There we go. And there's 5. We'll set that down. We'll cut that yarn off. And then we're going to weave in these ends. But this is how your collar will look, or your armband. I'm going to take a few minutes and weave in these ends, and then I'm going to show you how to attach your awareness ribbon. Here's our ribbon that we made, and here's our dog collar that we made. And to attach it, I like to do them a little bit at an angle like this, but you can put it flat, you can do it sideways, however you prefer to do it. And what I do is I take that needle again and just pin it in place. And I know a lot of people like to use pins. I prefer these needles just because they're a little thicker, but it's totally up to you. If you prefer to use a pin, that works great. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go underneath here, and I've got this matching thread on my needle, and I don't do it really tight because I still want it to be able to stretch a little bit. So I'll add a couple of stitches along the side. I'll make sure I go up in the center. I can probably take that needle out of the way now. And then I'll just do a few on this side. Just to tack it down and make sure it doesn't come undone. I don't usually put any in the bottom portion, but if you don't like the way it's laying, you certainly can. It's up to you how many stitches that you want to put in there. I'm going to go ahead and do one more up here at the top. There we go. And then I'm just going to go here in the back. And instead of weaving that in, I'm just going to tie a couple of knots. And I know a lot of people, again, don't like knots. But for this, I just really like to have a knot there. I'll tie 3 knots, give a nice good pull, and clip it. And the other thing is, if you're worried that this is going to come unraveled, dot it with a little bit of fabric glue or a little bit of fray check, and it works great. And that's how you make the awareness dog collar or wristband for you.